employment front, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we say this all too often now about the number of people out of work in France, but it has hit another record high in February. There are now more than 3.34 million people out of work in France. Terrible timing for the government, really, just ahead of the second round of those local elections this Sunday. President Hollande, of course, had made reducing unemployment, one of his major priorities. There are now 420,000 more people out of work than when he came to power in May 2012. Jennifer Lush and Delano de Souza have this report.
Surging to a new record high, there are now over 3.34 million job seekers in France, 31,500 more than in January. Under 25s and over 50s are the long-term unemployed. No category was spared the bad news, painting a very bleak picture for those out of work.
We're seeing a rise in every category, which shows the labour market's really deteriorating.
President François Hollande's failure to make a dent in unemployment has seen his popularity plummet. The government has spent at least €2 billion on subsidised job schemes and plans to phase out a payroll tax on companies in exchange for hiring more workers. But such initiatives have so far done little to jumpstart a stagnant economy.
We need to do more and in different ways. Firstly, we need to help our businesses become more competitive, because that's what will ultimately create more jobs.
The policy that's driven this economic plan for the last 2 years is an absolute disaster, and that's exactly what the French public made clear to the president in the first round of the elections.
Tackling unemployment has been a challenge for the Hollande government. The news comes at a critical time for the Socialist Party ahead of this weekend's local elections.
Now, speaking of state support for jobs, the French government formally confirmed its investment in the car maker Peugeot Citroën on Wednesday. It's part of a deal with the Chinese car maker Dongfeng, which officially signed during President Xi Jinping's visit to Paris. The French state will match Dongfeng's €800 million investment in PSA, taking a 14% stake in the company. PSA Peugeot Citroën employs almost 100,000 people here in France, and the government is keen to keep it in French hands.
This industrial agreement made sure to clarify that it's the role of the state as shareholder to ensure the decision-making centres and the production centres will be in France, and that there will be at least one new car model per French factory. The state is there to anchor PSA in France.
Now, to Ukraine next. The IMF said to be very, very close to announcing a bailout deal, isn't it?
Yeah, we're expecting an announcement, in fact, as early as later this morning. Kiev negotiating a loan of around $15 billion with the International Monetary Fund, but that money won't come without significant reforms being agreed by the Ukrainian government. Among them, to reduce the subsidy on gas to consumers. The state gas company has, in advance of this bailout deal, already announced that it's to raise prices by 50% from the 1st of May, with warnings of further increases between now and 2018.
A crush for Candy Crush now. Not such a great first day on the stock market, was it?
They were not Candy Crushing it on their first day. Shares in King, the maker of the mobile game, fell by 15% in their first day's trading. You can see here they rang the bell on the New York Stock Exchange, opening trading with some of the fruit, which is unusual. The problem, the fall in those shares has wiped more than $1 billion off the value of the company in its first day's trading. The problem here is that analysts are questioning how much King can repeat the success of Candy Crush. Candy Crush, very popular game, but their follow-ups aren't doing as well. And the market data firm D-Logic says that King's opening drop was in fact the biggest first-day fall for an IPO of its size in almost 20 years.
They were about to topple off a balcony, didn't it? What about the rest of the markets anyway, Stephen?
Well, tech stocks were the biggest fallers on Wall Street yesterday. Facebook also suffering after news that it's decided to purchase the virtual reality tech firm Oculus. Their shares fell 7%. The Nasdaq, which is very heavily weighted with technology stocks, the biggest faller on Wall Street, down just over 1.4%. In Asia today, though, it's the Ukraine crisis that's weighing on investors' minds. We had seen shares down much further earlier. They've recovered somewhat since. In Japan, I can tell you, their investors there are particularly worried about the new sales tax increase coming into force on the 1st of April, something we'll be hearing plenty about in the days to come. And Japan's ANA Airlines has announced that it's to buy 40 Boeing jets and 30 Airbus jets. This is a deal just announced in the past few minutes, and we'll have more details on that later.
Okay, a couple of other bits of companies news you're going to finish off with.
Yeah, we'll start with the Bank of America, which has agreed to pay a fine of $9.5 billion over the way, that it sold mortgages in the run-up to the financial crisis. The settlement with the housing regulator in the United States brings the lender's total payout over this scandal to $17 billion. The bank says the payout will reduce its quarterly income by $3.7 billion. And the jeans maker Levi Strauss says it's to cut around 800 staff over its struggling sales. The jobs affected will mainly be management positions. The cuts are part of a restructuring plan at the company that's trying to save up to $200 million. Fourth quarter profits at Levi had fell 68% as its sales dipped, particularly in Europe.
Stephen, thanks a lot. Stephen back every hour. Back about 55 minutes time in his first next bulletin, if you see what I mean, here on Volkswagen Cap. Coming up, we got the images for you as 3 base jumpers leap off the tallest skyscraper in the US. That's in web news. It begins, though, with hip-hop artists in Afghanistan promoting voter turnout.